Have you ever sat in a room full of loved ones and felt invisible? I did. And not just once, but during an entire Christmas party, when everyone had a present, except me. Not a box, not a word, not a glance. I sat there. I tried to smile, tried to pretend I didn't care. But silence can hurt more than 1,000 words. I was the youngest daughter in the family, the one everyone always said was different. I chose the creative path, the independent life, not following in the family's footsteps. And the price I paid was years of indifference that culminated on that winter night. I remember every detail, the sparkling Christmas tree, the laughter in the living room, and the as people opened each other's presents. I tried not to look, but how could I not look? Each gift, carefully wrapped and tied with a glittering bow, was a reminder. I didn't belong here anymore. And then, as if that weren't bad enough, my mother stood up, raised her glass of wine and said, "Merry Christmas, my dear family. It's wonderful to have you all here. All of you." But she didn't look at me when she said it. You might think I'm exaggerating, that gifts are just material things. But what hurt me wasn't the lack of gifts. It was the lack of attention, the lack of affection, the lack of recognition. I'd spent my entire youth proving my worth, only to be left on the sidelines. They expected me to be quiet like I always was. But that year I was no longer the insignificant girl. I'd been preparing for 4 years. Quietly, persistently. From scratch, I'd built a small empire fueled by their indifference. And that Christmas Eve, as they laughed and laughed, I knew my time was coming. You're watching Judgy Tales, where sweet revenge, real-life lessons, and emotional comebacks are told in words that are honest and powerful. If you've ever been overlooked, ignored, or misplaced in your own family, you'll understand why I couldn't just forgive and move on. Because some wounds can't be healed with an apology. And some people only learn their lessons when they lose something they take for granted. If you're ready, sit back. I'm going to tell you the story of how I went from being the forgotten girl to the woman who silenced my entire family when I walked into the room. Not because of power, but because of respect. Because they knew they had misjudged me. And I didn't need to scream to prove it. I just needed a chance. And they gave it to me not with support, but with coldness. I was the one they didn't give a gift to for 3 years. But I was the one who was able to buy back the house the family lived in. This story isn't to brag. It's a reminder. Never underestimate someone just because they don't live up to your expectations. Because one day the person you despise will be the one who decides the future you're holding on to. This is Judgy Tales, and you're about to embark on a journey that's not just about revenge. It's about resurgence. I was never the favorite child in my family. Even though I was the oldest, I always felt like an outsider in the house where I grew up. Family dinners were filled with laughter, but the laughter never seemed to be directed at me. I still remember the feeling of watching movies together on the sofa, my mother gently stroking my sister's hair, my father pouring orange juice for my brother. As for me, I often sat on the edge, quietly, like an unnecessary decoration. My name is Melissa. I grew up in a middle-class family in suburban New Jersey. My mother was an elementary school teacher and my father was an accountant for an insurance company. We weren't rich, but we had enough. I don't blame the situation. What I found unfair was the cruel favoritism from the people who were supposed to love me the most. Since I was a child, I was an independent child. I cooked for myself, did my homework, took extra classes, and found scholarships to go to college. While my sister was picked up and dropped off every day, and my brother had his birthday cake baked for him by his mother, I never had anyone show up at parent-teacher conferences or honors days. As I grew older, it became clear that I was a shadow in my family. Every holiday, every party, every important event, I was always at the bottom of the priority list. My sister, Emily, for years younger than me, was always bragged about by my mother as pretty, gentle, a traditional girl. My brother, Max, was my father's pride, smart, active, and pampered like a treasure. Me, I was too strong, too independent, too stubborn. To put it bluntly, I didn't care. I tried in vain to be recognized. I graduated from college with honors, landed a job at a tech company in New York, and worked my way up to a management position after just 3 years. But every time I came home, my accomplishments were overlooked. "It's just office work, nothing to be proud of," my mother once said when I shared about a big project I was leading. "Emily is the one I'm really proud of. She's going to marry a lawyer." Every time I came home, I was just a helper in the kitchen serving and organizing parties while Emily sat like the guest of honor. Max often brought financial troubles from failed investments, but my parents poured in money unconditionally. Me. I was never asked if I needed help, not once. Things came to a head one Christmas 3 years ago. I came home after nearly 6 months without seeing my family. I was excited, bringing expensive gifts for my parents and siblings. A smartwatch for my dad, a designer handbag for my mom, concert tickets for Max, and a pair of Louboutin shoes that Emily had been obsessed with. The Christmas party was a big one. The tree was sparkling with lights, the table was laden with food, the house was filled with music and laughter. I felt like maybe this time would be different. But then it was time to give out the presents. I stood there watching everyone open their presents one by one. Mom gave Emily a diamond necklace, Dad gave Max a new game console. Emily gave her parents tickets to a trip to Italy. Max, despite having no money, managed to get Mom a massage machine with Dad's money. Me. No one gave me anything. I smiled awkwardly, trying to hide my shock. "Oh, I guess my gift got lost?" I asked jokingly. My mother looked at me, then smiled slightly as if it didn't matter. "Melissa, you're the most independent one in the family. I don't think you need any gifts." I was stunned. Not by the gift but by the way they looked at me. As if I were an extra. A machine that didn't need affection. An extra piece in the picture of a perfect family they were painting. It was the first time I left the table without dessert. I went back to New York that night. Alone in the cold snow, I sat in my small apartment, staring at the boxes of gifts I had put so much effort into preparing, and wondering would they ever realize what they had lost? From that moment on, I vowed to myself, if they couldn't see my worth, then one day I would make the world see. And when they did, it was too late. I had always believed that home was a place to return to, a place where arms were always open no matter how cruel the world outside was. But that Christmas completely shattered that illusion. It wasn't just a festive party, but the night I realized that I was nothing in the eyes of those who shared my last name. It all started a few weeks before Christmas when my mother, a woman who always promoted the image of a perfect family, sent a group message inviting the whole family to dinner at her villa. "Each person has a dish," she wrote. "Let's all help make this Christmas special." It was no surprise. My family had always organized it like that, each person preparing a portion, while my mother would take care of the decorations and host. I eagerly prepared. Despite my busy schedule, I still took the time to make French-style honey-roasted chicken, a dish my grandfather had taught me and which my family always praised every year. I also personally wrapped gifts for each member of the family, hand-embroidered handkerchiefs for Grandma, silk ties for Dad, perfume for Mom, rare books for my siblings, and a custom-made teddy bear for my youngest nephew. Each gift was carefully chosen by me, full of love and memories. I arrived early to help my mother prepare. She looked at me, slightly surprised, and then said only one sentence, "Please leave the chicken in the kitchen." No hugs, no thanks, no warm smiles. I ignored the feeling of loss and told myself, maybe she is busy. But no one in the family asked me about my recent life. No one asked how my work was, even though I had just been promoted to creative director at a prestigious interior design company. Instead, they talked about the trip of my eldest brother and his wife, the new house of my youngest sister, the success of my cousin who is studying for an MBA at Stanford. I sat there like a shadow, smiling awkwardly, sipping wine and listening. It was time to give the gifts. As usual, the gifts were arranged by name. I sat in the middle of the brightly lit room, my heart pounding like a child. Mom handed out the gifts, calling each person's name with a bright smile. Everyone had a big box, some had 2 or 3 left. Grandma, Dad, my siblings. Everyone took turns opening expensive gifts, technology, jewelry, branded perfumes. The room was filled with laughter, bursts of joy and surprise. It wasn't called. At first I thought they forgot. Then I thought maybe my gift was special, they had saved it for last. But at the last minute, Mom just smiled, raised her glass. "That's enough. Let's all raise our glasses." I was stunned. A second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds passed and I was still sitting there, my hands empty. No one looked at me. No one noticed the absence. I smiled, a smile so bitter that my mouth almost trembled. I stood up and whispered, "I need to go out for a moment." No one stopped me. Outside, a light snow was falling. I sat down on the steps, still holding the handkerchief I had wrapped for her. My tears fell not because I didn't get a present, but because I realized that I had never really had a place in this family. I was the middle child, not as prominent as the successful eldest brother, not as pampered as the cute youngest. I was the quiet, the blurred background that no one bothered to highlight. Childhood memories flooded back. The times I got good grades, but my parents forgot because they were busy with my brother's parent-teacher conferences. The times I was alone in the hospital because the whole family was on vacation. The times I made crafts for my mother on Mother's Day, but she only thanked me vaguely because she was busy preparing the party. I realized that Christmas wasn't the first time they had forgotten me. It was just the first time I had faced the truth that I turned around about to say goodbye and leave when I caught my mother whispering to my cousin. She's always like that. Always pretending to sacrifice herself and waiting for others to praise her. But in reality, there's nothing special. I stood there, suffocated by the voice of the person who gave birth to me. I said nothing. I just walked out of the villa silently, carrying all the gifts I had prepared, and didn't look back. No one called my name. No one saw me to the door. And I understood, I was no longer a part of that family. That Christmas Eve, I wandered around the city. I rented a small room outside the center, curled up in a blanket, and cried like I had never cried before. But when dawn came, I didn't cry anymore. I started writing everything I had never dared to say. Writing about the feeling of being abandoned, of being ignored, of being invisible in my own home. I posted those articles on my personal blog, a place I had created just to record my design inspiration. Now it became an emotional diary. I didn't expect thousands of people to read them. They left comments, told about similar experiences, shared the same pain as me, and gradually, a community was formed. I started designing products based on that pain. Love yourself, gift boxes, bedding designs with the words, "I deserve to be remembered." Notebooks engraved with, "I am the only one." I called my brand the Forgotten One. And that was the beginning of a revenge plan that didn't require screaming or retaliation, but rather rising from the place of greatest pain. I left that Christmas party with a fake smile, an empty box, and a broken heart. The cold of December was not as cold as the feeling of being ignored by my own flesh and blood. I didn't expect expensive gifts. I didn't want praise, but at least a wish, a warm look, a little care. They didn't give it to me. No one. That night, I sat alone in my tiny rented apartment, looking out the fogged-up window, and I vowed I would never let them forget that day. Not with screams, not with tears, but with success. A success that would make them unable to turn away. A cold, calculated response that would make them wonder why they lost me. I started with a list. On a blank sheet of paper were the simple words: financial freedom, a business that belongs to me, a life that doesn't depend on anyone. Make them notice, make them regret. I worked every night. During the day, it was the same boring office job, being bossed around by management and looked down on by my coworkers. But at night, I studied. I learned everything about e-commerce, crafting, optimizing digital advertising. I watched videos, listened to podcasts, read every line of old business books I borrowed from the public library. Then an idea came to me as I looked at my own vulnerability. I would turn my feelings of abandonment into a brand. I would create products around the concept of restoration, of rebirth, gifts for people who had felt abandoned. People like me. I called it Phoenix and Ash. A name that symbolized rising from the ashes that others left you. I started from scratch. An old printer. A few materials from a flea market. I made each gift myself. Scented candles, healing stone bracelets, notebooks with healing quotes. I hand-wrapped each first order, handwriting each thank you card as if I were writing to myself years ago. I learned how to shoot TikTok videos, create Instagram reels, post them on Reddit. I didn't run ads. I told my true story. I was abandoned by my own family. Now I'm building a place for those who were abandoned like me. And then the video went viral. The comments poured in. I was like that too. I never got a gift from my parents. Thank you for doing this. I wasn't alone. And every person who had suffered like me was my first customer. They didn't just buy, they supported, shared, referred. Sales doubled every month. I hired people to wrap the orders. I hired freelancers to design the website. I switched from selling by hand to making small, delicate orders. After just 1 year, I was able to quit my office job. I opened a small studio, hired 3 people, And together we turned Phoenix and Ash into an iconic brand about inner strength and self-gratitude. But the pinnacle wasn't the sales. It was when I received an email from the organizers of the city's largest Christmas fair. They invited me to be a special guest, because my brand stood for gifts that matter. I got to speak, share the journey, and be the main sponsor of this year's opening ceremony, which would be attended by the press, the community, and of course, my family. I nodded without hesitation. I prepared the speech not to blame anyone, but to tell the story. Sincerely, without resentment but not forgetting. I told them about the night I left the party, about feeling lost, and about deciding to use that pain to build something bigger than myself. When I stepped onto the stage, the lights caught my eyes and I saw them. My mother, my sister, my cousin. Their faces were full of surprise. And then, something like shame. I didn't have to look long. I smiled softly, took the microphone and said, "Sometimes not being given anything is the most precious gift. Because it makes you give yourself something you deserve." The audience applauded. Not because I was eloquent, but because they understood. Because one of them had been me. I didn't approach the family table. I didn't shy away. I said hello. They congratulated me reluctantly. But I didn't need anything more. I had it all. Not money. Independence. I didn't retaliate with bitterness. I got my revenge by standing on a stage they couldn't ignore. I'm proof that when you're left off the list, you can rewrite your own. After that Christmas market night, things were never the same again. Not because I suddenly became important or because my family changed, but because I had stepped out of the shadow they had placed me in for so long. A shadow of mediocrity, of never good enough, of boring person with nothing worth noticing. I no longer needed their approval, and that was when they began to notice. A week after the ceremony, I received my first text message from my sister. At first it was just a line. "Congratulations. I saw you in the paper." I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I was learning not to let my emotions drag me back to old hurts. But she didn't stop. A few days later, another text message. "Actually, I want to apologize for that day. At the Christmas party. Everyone was so inconsiderate. You've matured more than we all thought." The text message stopped me. I didn't expect it. I didn't think they'd acknowledge it. But I didn't feel any relief. Instead, I felt a sense of relief. Not because of the apology, because I no longer needed it to feel complete. Then it was my mother's turn. She called after almost a year of not talking. I let the phone ring to the end and stopped. The second time she called, I picked up. Her voice trailed off as if she was trying to find a way to say it that wouldn't disconnect me. "Are you busy?" "A little busy. What do you need?" "I saw you on TV. At the fair. Came to see you. You spoke so well." "Thanks, Mom." I also wanted to say, "I'm sorry. I didn't think it would affect you like that. I just thought Christmas was for the kids and you're grown." I fell silent. Not out of anger, but out of old sadness. "I didn't mean to leave you alone," she said. "I just didn't know you needed me so much." I took a deep breath, then replied softly, "I did. But not anymore." The call ended peacefully. But there were no further promises. And I asked for nothing more. I learned that some wounds don't need to be healed by apologies, but by rebuilding yourself from the ashes. But life isn't all about the past. When you start to succeed, people look at you differently. Old friends suddenly appear. People who didn't believe you were good enough text to ask, "Are you hiring?" And then the press calls. A women's magazine asks me to be its person of the month. A talk show asks me to recount my journey from abandonment to independence. I don't say no. But I also don't let myself get caught up in the spotlight. I tell my story truthfully but not harshly. I share my journey as a reminder. You don't need to be given a gift to be valuable. Sometimes forgetting is the opportunity for you to remember yourself. My store continued to grow. I opened online branches in Europe. Customers from Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland started placing orders with very real messages. I used to feel invisible. I also used to not receive gifts from my own parents. Your story makes me feel not alone. I realized. My original plan for revenge was no longer anger. It was a journey of healing, not just for me but for thousands of people. My family gradually came back in their own way. My cousin started following my business page, occasionally commenting, "You're so great." One time she placed an order. A candle called Still Standing. I sent it like any other customer. No special note. No mention of relationship. But I knew it understood. Then came the following Christmas. For the first time in 2 years I was invited back. A text from my sister. We're having Christmas at Mom's. Can you come? I hesitated. Not because I wanted to say no, but because I wasn't sure I was ready. But then I thought, I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I didn't come to get anything. I came because I was strong enough to give, even when no one knew how to receive. I brought a big box. Inside were my own products. Candles, bracelets, notebooks, each with the words, for the one who forgot they mattered. I didn't expect anyone to cry. I didn't expect them to apologize. I just wanted them, even for a second, to ask themselves, why did I miss someone like that? At the party no one mentioned that Christmas. But something changed in the atmosphere. Lighter. More grateful. When I gave my gift to everyone, no one refused. No one laughed. My mother hugged me, for the first time in a long time. No words were spoken, but that hug was enough to let me know. I don't need to win them. I just need to win myself. I left the party feeling completely different. No more bitterness. No more resentment. But a gentle closing of an old chapter. And the opening of a new one, where I am no longer the forgotten one, but the one who writes my own value. The end is not the perfect revenge. It's the fact that you no longer need revenge. And that is the greatest victory. You've heard the story. A woman was forgotten in her own family on Christmas Eve, a time for reunion, sharing, and love. But instead of being welcomed as a member of the family, she became invisible. No gifts. No thanks. No hugs or warm eyes. Have you ever been in a similar situation? Today's story is not only a reminder for those who have been overlooked, but also a warning to those who always think that others will forever accept silence, indifference, or seemingly okay actions. What do you think about how the main character reacted? She could have vented her anger. She could have turned her hurt into hatred. She could have cut off the relationship completely. But instead she chose to quietly move forward, proving her worth not with words but with actions. With her own success, maturity, and light that she created for herself, without needing anyone's recognition. And then, the very people who had forgotten her, were the first to turn around and look back. Do you think they deserve forgiveness? Can forgetting in one evening justify years of non-recognition? Is a belated apology really enough to heal those deep wounds? What would you do if you were her? Would you return to your family's dinner table a year later as if nothing had happened? Or would you close the door forever and walk away without looking back? This is not just one person's story. It is the story of many. How many of us have been overlooked just because we weren't as noisy as others? How many times have you found yourself contributing, but then being pushed aside just because you weren't the popular kid? How many times have you worked hard, quietly, hoping for recognition, only to be met with silence? If you've ever been there, share. Tell us about a time when you were hurt, and how you overcame it. Let your story be a light for someone else in the dark. Because somewhere out there someone might be listening to you as you are. And if you've ever hurt someone, are you willing to apologize? We tend to think, they'll understand. But people don't always understand what we don't say. Sometimes a small act, like giving a gift, asking how someone is doing, or simply remembering someone's existence, can change the way they feel about themselves. Have you ever been forgetful? And if so, are you willing to make it right? We at Judgy Tales don't tell stories to condemn. We tell stories to illuminate, so that each of us can see a part of ourselves in them, whether the hurt or the uncaring. And from there learn to live more deeply, more kindly, and never take others' feelings for granted. So now we want to hear from you. Speech balloon comment below. What do you think of the main character's reaction? Have you ever been treated like this? Would you forgive, or cut it off? Is an apology enough to heal? We read all comments. And often your words are more touching than the video. Let's make this comment space a place of healing, not just judgment. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's story on the Judgy Tales channel. If you find this video meaningful, touching, or inspiring, don't forget to give us a like. The like button not only helps our videos reach more people, but it is also a way for you to show your support and encouragement for the honest and emotional stories that we want to send to everyone. If you are not yet a member of the Judgy Tales family, quickly press the subscribe button now so you don't miss any future videos. Every week, we prepare real, profound stories that have the power to connect emotionally and open up new perspectives on life, family, betrayal, and how we overcome adversity. Subscribing to the channel is the best way for you to accompany us on this journey. Especially, don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that every time we release a new video, you will receive a notification immediately. You will not have to worry about missing out on good stories, important life lessons, as well as humane sharing articles that the channel brings. Turning on notifications also helps you become the first to watch, discuss, and share your views with our community. In addition, please take a moment to comment below the video. We appreciate all your opinions, feelings, and stories. Comments not only help connect people, create a vibrant sharing community, but also are a great motivation for us to make more quality videos. Don't hesitate to tell us your story, whether it is a heartbreaking experience or a turning point in life. We are here to listen and share with you. If you know someone who is also going through difficult circumstances, or has been treated unfairly like in the video, please share this video with them. Who knows, it will help them feel less lonely, find faith and motivation to overcome all challenges. The power of real stories and empathy is the strongest bridge between people. Finally, Judgy Tales is always committed to bringing you genuine, profound, and meaningful content. You are the reason why we constantly strive and create. Please continue to follow and accompany us on the journey to discover dramatic everyday stories, heart-touching lives, and valuable life lessons. Once again, thank you very much for watching until the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell now. See you in the next videos of Judgy Tales.